What were the first steps to get your first client? Do you remember what happened?
So my mom actually told me there was some kind of course around how to be a social media manager. And I took that course. First thing I did was I went around a bunch of different companies and I said, can I set you up on social media and can I do it for free? Because I just wanted to get some clients, like some kind of testimonials and referrals, and I wanted to get some experience. But no one actually took me up on that. So when no one took me up on that, I thought, well, I'll just start charging instead. And then I did get a client.
Jodie Cook built and sold her first company for 7 figures. She's a multiple best-selling author, Forbes writer, speaker, international powerlifter, and founder of a growing technology company, all whilst living a life designed so you never want to retire from it.
If you're around all the time, your team never get the chance to see what they can do because you're just answering all the questions. But if you go away, they have to think for themselves. And also, I think I was trying to be a coach rather than a manager to them. If someone comes to me with a problem, I'd be like, so what could you do? And I'm just asking questions and not giving them answers whatsoever. So they learn how to think like that. So then they start to find answers themselves.
Yeah.
But that was a big part of it. But running it together, it means that your relationship just has different sides to it because you can just be like, oh.
I've got a quick favour to ask you. Nearly 90% of people listening to this podcast right now don't follow or subscribe to us. And my goal is to get that down to 80%. So if you've ever liked an episode or a clip that we've put out, please could you click that follow or subscribe button. It helps us more than you know to bring more guests onto the podcast and put out better and better content for you. Thank you. Before we dive into this episode, I want to take a second to speak about our sponsor, Pith Stem, who we are thrilled to have on this journey with us. As someone who is always looking for ways to improve my healthy hustle, Pith Stem's DropTop desk stood out to me as the best full work from home solution on the market. The world of work from home is changing, and a laptop or screen perched on your lap or dining room table isn't enough anymore. It's imperative that we have a solution at home that matches our productivity station that we can have in our office. But of course, homes weren't made to be worked in, and not all of us want a dedicated study. That's why I'm so happy that Pith Stem created this perfect solution. They designed this desk with both the needs of the professional and their home in mind. It's perfect because it allows me to have a full productivity station that suits my needs and helps me get the most out of every minute that I spend at it, not only so I work comfortably, but that I actually enjoy it. And the best thing about DropTop, I can close and lock it at the end of the day to keep work and home separate. And it looks awesome on the wall. You can get your DropTop desk anywhere in the world from pithandstem.com or just Google DropTop and you'll find it pretty quickly. So Jodie, as I understand it, you sold your first... What are you laughing at?
Well, now you told me it was a stolen question. I'm like, how did I answer it? Do I need to steal the answer as well?
Do you want to steal the answer from yourself from like a year ago?
Maybe.
So you sold your first business after running it for 10 years, but you started it straight out of uni. So I'm interested in what the story behind starting it was. How did you get the idea? Why did you choose to start a business rather than get a job like everyone else?
Before I was 21, I'd already had 15 jobs because I didn't super enjoy school. It was all right. You know how people say that school's days are the best days of your life? They weren't the best days of my life in any way. And so I was kind of bored with education. And so all I wanted to do was just get jobs. So I worked in hospitality. I worked in shops. I did mystery shopping. I did so much different stuff because I was like, I just want to earn. I just want to be out in the world learning stuff. And that was where I felt the most alive, not in the classroom. So at university, it was third year and everyone was just applying for jobs. And because I did a business management degree, same as you, everyone just wanted to work for a consultancy business. And there was the Aldi graduate scheme that was like really big salary and you got an Audi and everyone was like, oh my God, that's the one that we should go for.
That was the dream, that one, wasn't it?
That was the dream one. I don't
remember.
know. They nailed the marketing for that one. But I just remember being to my friends like, guys, why are we applying for jobs? It's so easy to get a job. Let's just run businesses and then getting a job can be our plan like D. I don't think it was even my plan D. But even actually having said that, I did get a job. So I got a job on a graduate scheme that was in social care management, which was a bit random, but I just took that. So I worked that full-time job, but then at the same time, I had another full-time job in a restaurant. So every day was 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then 6 till 12. But when I was running 2 jobs, I just was saving loads and I was planning what I would do when I finished. And then as part of that, I also got assigned a business coach. So I was 21 and I had a business coach who pretty much taught me how to think. And because she taught me how to think, I got really intentional about my next steps. So when my graduate scheme was over, I already had my business plan in place and I knew what I was going to do.
When you were at uni, did you have any modules around entrepreneurship? Was there any entrepreneurs in front of you? Or was it always just a lecturer who was a doctor in business or whatever?
I actually, I failed marketing in my first year of uni. I
Marketing's
had to
hard at uni.
reset it. Yeah, I had to reset. And there was an entrepreneur module, but I didn't take it because I didn't like the idea of my idea getting graded before it had been out there in the world. There was definitely a sense of, well, how do you know it's a bad idea? Like, you can't give me a mark for this thing that you don't even know anything about. So I just didn't take the entrepreneurship module at all.
I think what you said about being taught to learn or to think is actually really interesting, because the entrepreneurship module that we did, there was an American lady, I think I've told the story before, but there was an American lecturer, and the guy next to me, he'd already started a business in his sort of last year at school, and he'd covered enough to pay for uni up front. It was like an app to help you learn how to pass your theory test in a car. And she was horrible to him. She was really saying, I've made, millions doing this. I'm amazing at properties, whatever. A lot of ego on her. And she pointed at him once and said, you'll probably never make enough money to cover this university degree, because what you're actually going to earn based on your career. And he just stood up and was like, I've paid for it out front of the business that I started, and walked out. And I was like, that is the coolest thing ever. And he ended up being her business mentor.
Wow.
Because everything she was saying was not quite as true as she made out. And I remember just being like, why am I here now? I didn't have the balls to walk out like some people, that have amazing entrepreneurial stories. But it's just wild to me that we weren't taught to think at uni. You're just taught to do, aren't you? Even in a business degree, where you think it's about creativity and innovation, but it's really just to keep you into that mold that you talk about so well about different conveyor belts. The school conveyor belt is probably a uni one. And did you feel that when you were going through uni?
Yeah, for sure. It's like school's set up to get you to pass exams. Then you pass your exams. Then you have to go to uni. But you don't have to go to uni. You just believe you do because everyone else is doing it. It's not, the question for me wasn't, are you going to uni? It was, which uni are you going to? And then you just decide, and then you go, and then you're on that conveyor belt, and that's all to get you into a job. Even though you're doing a business management degree, it's still be a consultant, even though you haven't actually got experience of running the business. So it started not to make sense to me. And maybe it's because I'd had all those jobs before. And maybe it's also because I had that business coach. But I definitely was open to questioning what my next step could be.
I think it's really cool that you were even open to that. It was full transparency, I don't think I questioned the conveyor belts. I started like tiny businesses when I was at school, but like gardening, whatever, not real things, little t-shirts here and there. But people that actually fully questioned it and then made a change, I think are really inspiring. And I wonder, when you were being brought up by your parents, was there entrepreneurial emphasis or vibes around you?
My dad told me what he did for work in different ways in different years. So he's like cheeky Essex guy, just really funny, and always has like a funny story about something. And so when I was very young, he would tell me that he sold cars. And then I found out that he taught other people how to sell cars. And then I found out that he actually was moved around different Peugeot and Citroen dealerships, and he had to turn them around. So the ones that weren't performing, he had to like make them perform. Wow. And so that's what he did, and he did it really well. So I had from him the kind of cheeky car dealer sales angle. And then my mom working in the 80s was like corporate power woman, big boofy hair, suit, constantly convincing people or demonstrating that she was there because she was really good, not just because she was a woman or the only woman. And then when I was, and then when I was 15, she became self-employed. And so she started getting clients, and she did marketing consultancy and like research projects and that kind of stuff. But she worked from home. She worked from home before it was cool.
Yeah, fair.
But when she was on the phone, me and my sister had to be quiet. So I definitely got the sense that work was very important. Work was something that you take pride in doing, and clients are important. Like you do stuff to get clients. So when I was 15, I had that terminology. It was like client, invoice, networking. They became normal words to me. So that also led to being 22 and thinking, well, I go networking, I get clients, and then I invoice them. And that's literally a business. So that was all I needed. Yeah.
So you knew that there was this thing called entrepreneurship. What were the first steps to get your first client? Do you remember what happened?
Yes. So my mom actually told me there was some kind of course around how to be a social media manager. And I took that course.
In what year?
2011.
Okay, so it wasn't even a thing, really.
Wasn't even a thing.
New.
So brand new. Like I say we now, it was very much me at the time, but I feel like I learned to say we quite early on because it made it sound like bigger.
Yeah.
But when we were actually a team when I started building it, we set up the first Twitter accounts for Deliveroo. Like we had clients where we convinced them to be on social media and then set them up and then represented them. But yeah, 2011. So
they had no budget for social media at that time, really? Like you had to convince them to put budget towards it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's similar to AI now.
Sure,
it's just,
yeah.
I like that field of here's the future, here's all this magical stuff that could happen if you just get involved now. And then people are like, okay, I kind of believe you. You seem to know what you're talking about. And also, because I was 22 and I looked about 12, it felt like one of the only businesses I could really get away with starting because people expected that a 22-year-old was telling them about this stuff. So what did I do? First thing I did was I went around a bunch of different companies and I said, can I set you up on social media and can I do it for free? Because I just wanted to get some clients, like some kind of testimonials and referrals, and I wanted to get some experience. But no one actually took me up on that. So when no one took me up on that, I thought, well, I'll just start charging instead. And then I did get a client. So I remember it was a company in Blackpool. I drove up the M6 to go and see them. And then I didn't have any experience whatsoever. I kind of had a feeling of how they could show up online. And then I just researched so much. I researched the founder, I researched what they did, their ethos, their client base, everything. And then I think I just went in there and just exploded all my ideas on everyone. And it was a board, like it was an actual boardroom table. There's like 10 people there. And then they gave me the work and I got my first client. And then the first one felt like the biggest step. And then after that, everything was so easy because I had this work that I'd already done that had gone well. I had a testimonial from them. So I just used that to get the second and the third and the fourth and carried on. And then it was about 8 months in where I had 40 hours of client work a week that I was just doing myself. And so then I just thought, well, what do I do now? I'm at this crossroads, and my business coach told me that when you're at the crossroads, you need to write down all your options. And my options were I could just carry on doing this. I could just be a freelancer, or I could start hiring and I could get other people to do some of the work, and I could carry on doing sales and networking and get more clients and grow a team. So that's what I did.
At what point did you realize that you were the kind of personality type that liked to be doing the people-facing stuff?
Almost straight away.
Okay.
So the biggest thing that happened at the time was I met someone called Jackie, who was like a serial networker, and I was going to probably maybe 2 or 3 networking events a week, and she was at every single one, and she was also at other ones. So she was just breakfast, lunch, dinner, network. And I was like, when are you doing this work? And I don't know if she was, I didn't really understand how she was just doing that all the time. And then I was like, how do I do this? But how do I make it so that the client work is actually done to the high standards I want it doing to? And I didn't really understand how that would happen until I realized that I could start hiring people, and then I could train them, and then I could just be like Jackie all the time.
Be like Jackie, yeah. It's so funny. I remember when we first came to Dubai and we'd never run a business, and everyone was like, you need to network. I remember going to these things and you sort of meet these people and everyone's like, yeah, you want to take the business card in your right hand. If it's any good, put it in your left pocket. If it's not, your right pocket. And all these little systems, these little hacks. And then quite quickly I realized that no one there was making any money.
Yep.
And I sort of stopped networking for a while, probably a year. And that's when the business like took off. And then I was able to go back to different networking events because I wasn't going to so many. I was trying to pick the ones that I thought were better, but I have no idea when I first started, right? Like probably maybe like Jackie. You just have no idea. You should go in for like play the whole field.
Yeah.
Something's got to pay off.
Jackie wasn't making any money.
Oh, okay. Good old Jackie. Bless. But I think the whole point of networking now, and even with the businesses that actually probably we both run or you used to run in your new business as well, which we'll get into, a lot of it is online networking now, isn't it? Almost like we call it the check back, where if you meet someone at networking now, you'll listen to them, but you're probably going to research them after their socials or whatever. And that sort of check back is so valuable in building that trust, which is so weak in this day and age. No one seems to trust anyone unless they've got a following, and then you sort of check if they're real followers or not. And it's like, how deep do you go into this minefield of social proof almost?
Networking was definitely just the thing that I started out with. The thing I had in mind was one type of client, one way of reaching them, and one offer. And that was pretty much what my agency ran on for the first 4 years, just networking, marketing managers / entrepreneurs, and social media management. And then as soon as we discovered Google Ads, it was like, oh, we can use this instead, and then we can go bigger. And then it became more Google Ads than networking, still social media management, and it became more marketing directors than entrepreneurs.
Really? Okay.
But you can keep it so simple.
Yeah. And you're a massive advocate now of the lifestyle, right? Which is why I think so many people love your content in, online, on Forbes, all these different places, because you talk about the lifestyle that we could lead, and you've obviously got the lifestyle business or performance business, and which one do you want? It's a difficult thing to answer. Like when we first met, I was like, I really want a performance business because I came from a corporate career, so I was like, that was cool. I'll still wear a suit maybe, and I'll do all this spreadsheet work. And then you realize over time that actually the lifestyle is so cool. And I think the real winners are the ones that have that lifestyle. Maybe they're not making 10 million a year, but they're making decent money and they're able to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So throughout this journey we're on, when you started to build the team, stop doing the physical networking as much, when did you start to be able to incorporate the sort of lifestyle changes that you wanted to?
It was around 2013, and I had a really big client, and it was an NHS kind of like a health service kind of body, like section of it. And it was, the client was run, let's start again. So it was about 2013, and I had a really big client where I spent 2 days a week in their offices, and it was a part of the NHS, but it was kind of a private contract, and it was headed up by a guy called Rob, who had his own business. And there was some point in that time where his marketing manager quit, and he said to me, do you want this job? Do you want to be the marketing manager? And it was $100,000 job, and I was 23. Oh. And I was like, no, I don't want a job. And he looked at me and was like, what do you mean you don't want a job? You've got a job. And I was like, no, I've got a business. And he was like, no, you have got a job. And I'm like, no, I've got a business. You've maybe got a job, but you've also got a business. So I don't understand. Like, it didn't make sense to me. And then he said, he kind of took me not wanting a job to mean I don't want to work. So he was like, oh, there's this book called The 4-Hour Workweek. Cool, yeah. You should read that. So he said it as an insult, but I wrote it down, and then I bought the book, and then I read it, and
Great
that
book.
Just opened, my mind exploded when I read that. And because I was a couple of years into running my business, I think I had a team of, by the time I'd finished the book and properly comprehended it, I had a team of 6 people, but it was totally the Jodie show. It was like every client talked to me, every team member talked to me. I had all these people to manage. I'd created the business so that I could go away and travel, and I hadn't traveled whatsoever. So that was probably around the time where I just thought I have to change something, and it was the book that really was the catalyst for that. So I booked a trip to Australia that was 5 weeks long for 3 months in the future, and just gave myself a deadline to sort it out. And it was the 4-Hour Workweek, and it was the E-Myth, and it was a bit of Rich Dad Poor Dad as well, that were the 3 books that just got me to do that. And then I systemized my business, put everything in place, and got on the plane to Australia with my husband. And then we went away for 5 weeks and nothing burned down. And then I just did it on repeat after that.
So you were 20, how old were you when you did that?
23, something like that.
Ways.
24, yeah.
So literally straight out of uni, you've started the business, and within a couple of years, you're able to just go away 5 weeks, nothing burns down, still acquiring clients and still delivering everything.
Yeah.
No way.
The main thing was just booking the flight. That was it. There's all this fear around, what might happen? But because my business coach had taught me how to think, because I had just, everything starts with a blank piece of paper. And so it was, okay, I'm scared of all this stuff that's going to happen. Well, what are you scared of? Write it all down. I'm scared of this thing happening. Okay, well, what will you do if that happens? And I just had the plan. So there was nothing on there that could happen where we didn't have a way of solving it. And it was maybe the 2nd or 3rd trip. I went to Toronto for a month, and the office got broken into, and all our laptops got stolen. They nicked like 20 laptops and laptops and iMacs. And by the time I'd woken up, because I'd slept all the way through it because of the time difference, by the time I'd woken up, my general manager had called the police, called the insurance company, gone to the Apple store, replaced the laptops, and she just told me an update. And it was because it's just systemized. It's just, there's a process. You know what you need to do, so just get on with it. And because I was hiring very smart people as well, they could just follow the processes and they could just think.
But they must have felt so empowered enough, right, as well. You're not just the kind of person that's set up a business and then said, I'm going away, look after it. You must have empowered them enough they fully respect you, but they also know that they can do a good job and they can think for themselves.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
harder said than done.
Yeah, but if you're around all the time, your team never get the chance to see what they can do because you're just answering all the questions. But if you go away, they have to think for themselves. And also, I think I was trying to be a coach rather than a manager to them. So I don't really want to manage people. I want to work with really good people and then maybe coach them if they need it. So if someone comes to me with a problem, I'd be like, so what could you do? And I'm just asking questions and not giving them answers whatsoever. So they learn how to think like that. So then they start to find answers themselves.
Yeah.
But that was a big part of it.
That's so cool because what I think is really, what I love with a team, whether it's like when I used to run a team in a corporate or running a team in the business, I really like building up skill equity in people because I think that's what people did to me. Like my old boss, he was 10 years older than me. So when I was at the company, I was at 25, so he's 35. But he taught me so much that I was still on a low enough salary to be super valuable to the company. Do you know what I mean? If he hadn't done that, or he'd made me, put me on like, I don't know, 6 figures, they'd have been like, that person is paid that and they know that. But because he brought me in at a salary of like half 6 figures,
3 figures.
Weird way of saying it, yeah. 3 figures, can you believe it? What was I saying? He brought me in, whatever. He then is able to build me up in a way that I'm now more valuable than what I'm getting paid, which I think is the same as a team member.
Yeah.
Because people that come in who are already really good, sometimes they're not the best people because they have processes and ways they think, which works for big companies, but for startups or scale-ups, I think sometimes the skill equity that you can build is so, so powerful. I think it's really cool. And so only certain people understand that, people that have got like really good empathy, emotional intelligence. And I guess part of that, I'm going to link this terribly, but will help explain how you wrote the book with Dan Priestley about how to raise entrepreneurial kids, because that must have been a component where you're able to say, this is something that I would outlay or give to my kids. I'd bring you up in this way. I'd give you skills. I'd allow you to ask your own questions.
Yeah, for sure. I think I realized that lots of the reason that I was able to start my own business was because my mom had just given me this entrepreneurial mindset. And it was stuff like, if I was stuck with something, she'd say, well, what could you do next? And what could you do after that? And she did so many reframes when I was younger. And, when you're little and you do like shows and you do school plays and that kind of stuff. And I'd be like really scared. And she'd be like, no, don't be stupid. Like, it's just butterflies. You're like, this means that something really good's going to happen. And everything I was scared about or worried about or anything, it just wouldn't be a thing because my mum would just diffuse it. So I guess you apply that to starting your own business and it's like, yeah, just go networking. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, it was just, nothing was ever a problem. So I got that mindset. And then it was looking back at being 22, not wanting to have a job and realizing that all my friends were going to get jobs. It wasn't just because they were doing business management degrees. It was also because none of their parents were entrepreneurs. And there's such a big correlation. It's something like if a kid grows up with entrepreneurial parents, they're 80% more likely to start their own business themselves. And it's the same for unemployed. And unemployment's 50%. Grow up with unemployed parents, you're 50% more likely to be unemployed yourself. So it's like, we have to break this cycle somehow. We have to give people role models as young as possible so that they can, they feel like entrepreneurship is an option for them at 18, 19, 20. So that led to a series of books called Clever Tykes, which are kids' books that I co-wrote with my husband just kind of for fun. Yeah. And then it was in researching entrepreneurial parents that meant I sent out a journo request to ask for stories, and I thought I might get 3 or 4 and I could write a blog post, and I got 400, and it was 400 entrepreneurial parents or people who were raised by entrepreneurial parents pouring their hearts out, telling me everything. And then I was like, this is not a blog post, this is a book. And then, I messaged Daniel Priestley just because we'd known each other for maybe about 7 or 8 years by that point. And I was like, hey, this is a book I want to write. Do you want to write it with me? And he was like, yeah, sure. Yeah,
it's so cool. I think my parents, even now, don't understand what we do.
No.
There's not an entrepreneurial bone in their bodies. And they're just like, yeah, they're over there in Dubai. I don't have no idea what they're doing. They're just doing something.
I think
They just don't
most
get
parents
it.
don't. I love that it's quite a fun exercise. If anyone's listening and they're self-employed and they suspect that their parents don't know what they do, just message your mom and put, how would you describe what I do in one sentence, and just see what comes back, because it's really funny.
I might have to do that myself.
Yeah.
But she'll probably listen to this, so she'll be prepared.
Yep. Yeah. One time my husband's grandma asked him what he did, and he was kind of explaining it. And then she was like, but what do you really do? Like, say it, like, talk to me, say it simply. And he just went, I just send emails.
It's just easier to say that. Just emails. Do you know what? Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So Jodie, when you explain it like this, so you've got this lifestyle, so you've run the business for 10 years, you're able to travel decent amount in the first 5 years, but in the second 5 years, as much as you want, more or less, almost nomadic. Why would you sell the business if you had that lifestyle? What was the thinking and the process around that?
Oh, good question. Okay, so first 3 years, total Jodie show. Everything relies on me. Read the 4-Hour Workweek, booked a trip to Australia, figured my life out. Then spent 5 years of traveling for 1 month in every 3. And that was the true lifestyle phase. Then March 2020, freaking COVID. So came back from Miami and Hawaii, was so ready for an amazing year of loads of traveling, and then got locked down in Birmingham, UK. My company shrunk by 25% in 1 week. Our clients were really freaked out. Lots of them were in travel, hospitality, events, and their businesses were just pretty much gone. So that passed on to us. And then you can write all the SOPs in the world. You can have all the processes for everything, but not that. No one had a clue, including me. So what followed March 2020 was 5 months of just saving the company pretty much, because it was 25%, but was it going to be more? Could I save jobs? And I pretty much tried to outwork COVID. So it led to some quite cool stuff, because to that point, we just relied on networking and Google Ads, but there was no networking going on. We'd only been emailing our email list like once a year about a party. And we went from once a year to once a day about a webinar that we were running. And we were just constantly trying to replace ways of meeting people by running events and teaching people online. And the team were just so amazing, because we'd all been in the same office together for that whole time. And then everyone was remote, but we knew each other really well. So we started having huddles 3 times a week. And we had Taskmaster Tom, who would set a fun icebreaker question for each of us. And we were just figuring that out all together as well. But what happened was, in the next 5 months, we ended up growing back to normal size, and then another 20%.
Oh, wow.
So we just figured out growth in that time. And then it got to the August or September time. And I just thought, what do I want to do now? Because stuff was sort of opening up again. We had this business that I'd probably describe as a performance business now rather than a lifestyle business, because I wasn't going anywhere. And I thought, here are my options here. I've got go back to what I was doing before, have a lifestyle business, travel, leave the team to it, maybe go back to having an office, or get involved properly and see where else I can take this, or exit and hand it over. And the thing that made my decision was, I was 22 when I started the business. I was 31, 32 then.
Cool, that is cool.
Imagine the different person you are in that time. You've grown, you're so different, you want different stuff. And the question in my head was, is this the business I start tomorrow? And it wasn't. And so I thought, I don't want to do the lifestyle thing, because I don't want to get tapped on the shoulder again by COVID or whatever else is going to happen. I don't want to do the performance thing, because this isn't the business I want to take to new heights. So that's the one that's left, to sell it.
That's pretty cool. You do a lot of writing as well, don't you? Are you quite a introspective, reflective learner? Because I just imagine, I don't know if you're writing for Forbes then, probably. I imagine if I was writing stuff that often about things, you're going to have this massive horizon to be like, exactly what you just said, uncovering these things. I'm not going to start this again. I could do something different. Did that play any part, that sort of writing and cathartic element of the learning process?
Yeah, it's huge. Writing's everything. I journal my thoughts down. That's how I make sense of everything. Writing for Forbes as well. It's like writing out the lessons. I kind of see it as writing advice to my former self.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to past Jodie to say, here's how you do this, and here's how you work through this problem. And then it just makes sense. And then I share it, and then other people say it resonates with them, because we all pretty much have the same challenges.
Yeah. I don't know if you did a video on that. I definitely saw a post on, have you done a video on, maybe I've watched a video on that as well. advice to my former self. It's definitely a picture. I can see it in my mind.
Yeah.
There's a door frame and you're on one side
Yes.
now. I thought that was a great one because, you know, like you say, obviously we want to learn advice from future people, like Alex Hormozy's way of being like, he writes an email on a Friday and then responds to it as his 90-year-old self, because it's a very different viewport that you come back from.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like it because whenever you give advice back to yourself, other people can bolt themselves on, because we just all want someone to be authentic. We had a great chat with Lara Costa recently, actually, I know you're good friends with, because she was talking about authenticity being this buzzword nowadays. It's just be authentic. And her example was brilliant. It was like someone puts on LinkedIn, oh guys, I've lost this 7-figure sale. I can't believe it. Next line, but it's okay. I've made six-figure sales in the same week. That's like what authenticity is, quote unquote, these days. But I think the way that you've done it, giving advice in the way that you do, builds authenticity in a genuine way. I think it's a really cool way of like bolting onto people.
Yeah.
I just think it's a way different way, and people are using authenticity wrong.
You almost just need to transport yourself back to some kind of past time when you really felt something, and then unpack those feelings. And if I look back to the me that was March 2020, losing all those clients, being like, what do we do? And I'd be like, Jodie, I think you can figure this out. I've actually got a picture that I took. I took a selfie at that time because I just had this feeling that this was going to be the best thing that had ever happened, even though it wasn't. And I took that selfie to signal, I'm going to make this the best year of my whole life.
I just want to briefly interrupt this podcast so I can talk to you about Nutrition Kitchen, who have kindly sponsored this episode. As entrepreneurs who are looking to stay as healthy as possible, fueling ourselves with high quality food without breaking the bank or wasting time can be tough day to day. Nutrition Kitchen solves that issue by delivering incredible meals to your door, tailored to your diet, whether you're trying to lose weight, build muscle, or maintain balance. They change their menus all the time so you can choose from a variety of dishes and leave the monotony of meal prepping behind. Now, back to our guest.
And so that was March 2020. And then we sold in March 2021 because it somehow figures out. So I think there's power in talking to the past versions of you.
Yeah, for sure. And then to sort of bolt on to, so people can get a really well-rounded view of what Jodie's personality is like. In that time between agreeing a sale and it going through, what did you do in that time?
I wrote a book.
Wrote a book. Okay. So when you're doing all the legal stuff, all the people trying to do due diligence, trying to get you down on the price, you're like, I'm going to write a book.
Yeah. So as soon as I decided I was going to sell, I just went on a full-on mission doing it, just focused on it. Met people who had previously sold their agencies, met people who had previously bought agencies, just asked them how they did it. I didn't really want the step-by-step. I more wanted their beliefs. I wanted the beliefs that they had that meant it happened for them. And someone was like, yeah, it's easy to sell your agency. So I was like, it's easy to sell your agency. So I kind of took on their beliefs. And then one of those people put me in touch with a business consultant who helps prepare your agency for sale. And he said, you need a pitch deck for your agency. You need to systemize it. You need to put all these processes in place. And I was like, hang on, I've done that. And he was like, oh, okay, you don't need me. So he put me straight in touch with the broker. And the broker said, this is going to take 6 months. He said, in the first month, we're going to write a one-pager. We're going to talk to potential buyers. And then you're going to meet them. You're going to have chemistry meetings with them. Then you're going to have second meetings. Then they're going to put in offers. Then we're going to negotiate. Then we're going to close. He just laid it all out. And he said it would take 6 months, and it took 6 months and 2 days.
Cool.
But the last 6 weeks of that is just due diligence. And lawyers move slowly. Lawyers move so painfully slowly. And I thought, there's no point me following anyone up. I'm just going to annoy people. And also I found that the faster you move, the faster you want to move, the slower they want to move. So it was a way better energy to be like, nah, it can take ages. Honestly, I'm not in a rush. Like, I love this business. You can, if it doesn't go through, it's fine. And then they would be more like, no, I really want it now. So that was kind of strange. But to help me do that, to help me not follow them up, I would just get up each morning, and for the first 90 minutes of each morning, I would write my book, because I wanted to put all the lessons from 10 years of running this business into a framework, really. And the framework was execute, systemize, scrutinize, exit. And that became the 10-year career framework in the 10-year career book.
I think that 10-year career is such a good title as well. And I can't believe it was 10 years from the start to the finish. It's just an odd and perfect time frame, isn't it, for all that to have happened?
Yeah.
It's almost like to put a bow on it.
Yeah.
You touched on something there, which I think is interesting. When you said you sort of visualized the things, you said when you visualize the things, it makes it slightly easier, because I know that's also how you approach your professional powerlifting, right? If you're going to go and do a deadlift, you'll visualize it first because you feel like you've already done it. How did that start? You know, that visualizing things in the business world and also then transitioning it to the powerlifting sport. And how did you know it was going to help you? How have you built upon it, I guess?
Yeah, good question. I don't know how it first started. I don't know where I got the idea for visualizing, but there's just some kind of magic that anything you want to happen in your life, business, sport, anything, there's no one that can stop you from imagining it happening. So like I can imagine myself being on stage doing a 200 kilo deadlift. I can imagine it. No one can stop me. It's in my head. The plates are loaded and I'm lifting it up. And I just started doing that for everything. And then I started realizing that when I started visualizing stuff, it started coming true. Like my agency, I wrote myself a pretend check for the exact amount I wanted to sell for, the date I wanted to sell. I wrote like for one social media agency with no earn out, I signed it the perfect buyer, and then it came true and it was the exact amount.
As well. Perfect.
And just, yeah, it's strange, but when you visualize it and when you write it down, especially, it somehow connects to something. And then I almost feel like you're kind of manifesting it, but you're not just manifesting it because you're also doing the work, but now your work has real purpose.
Yeah.
So I use it a lot.
I've actually never really done that. I think it's something I should start, as I just think it makes complete sense. When I heard your analogy of the powerlifting one, like before you go out and do a squat or whatever, you see it in your mind. And then when you go out and do it, you feel like it's the second time you've done it.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant because so many times you go to do whatever, anything in life, but let's use a deadlift, and you're pulling it, you're like, oh, it's not how I thought it was going to feel.
Yeah.
But I think if I'd already thought about it in my mind before I did it, you'd be like, oh, it's normal. It's exactly what I was going to expect.
It's strange when it works. The best powerlifting competition I ever did, I'd visualize the entire thing. And I don't even mean just the 9 lifts that you do. I mean, arriving at the venue, like checking in, you have a kit check and you do weigh in and all the different processes. I'd seen it in my mind. And then it felt way less like I was going on stage and lifting the weights and more like I was stepping into a version of myself that had already done the stuff. It was really weird. But one of the coaching points I quite like before lifting on stage or in training is just, it's already happened. It's already happened. You've already done this. And you're like, yeah. And then you get such belief that you can do it because it's already happened. And then I don't know, it's magic.
It's such a good way of doing it. I think we need to touch on the powerlifting stuff because, well, for a start, I always think people that do sport to a good level alongside business tend to do better because it's the discipline, right, and the motivation and the consistency that helps in both areas. But I think people quite often think something like running is more obvious of how hard it is. If someone's like, I did a marathon at the weekend, you're like, oh, cool, that is really hard. I can't do a marathon. If someone does powerlifting, they're like, oh, yeah, I go to the gym as well. Yep. Or they'll go, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're similar strengths. So there's 2 questions in there, basically. So how did you get into powerlifting and how did it help your business? But part 2, I just want to emphasize how good you actually have become at powerlifting, because the weight difference between what you weigh or compete at and lift is ridiculous. And I think people listening to this, we need to put it into like number of buses or like something that they'll understand because it is ridiculous, right? Okay. Powerlifting is just a different level of like, we're not going there to just get big muscles. You're going there to be as strong as possible. Yep.
I got into powerlifting from running. I used to run. I did 10Ks, I did half marathons, I did 5Ks.
Nice.
And then I picked up a book by Paula Radcliffe called How to Run. And then she said, you should also lift weights. And then I started going to the gym and doing what most girls do or did at the time. And I just kind of went like this with some dumbbells. And then I went on the cross trainer and then I stretched and I was like, oh, I've had such a workout.
Took a picture for Instagram. Perfect.
Probably, yeah. And then I saw there was a girl at the gym and she was next to me and she was lifting with the 12.5 kilo dumbbells and she was doing sets of like 6. And firstly I was like, hang on, you can't do sets of 6. You can only do 10 to 12. Nice. That is the approved range. So that confused me for a start. And then she was like, no, you can lift this too. And I was like, can I? And then she kind of got my elbows almost and was like, just, no, honestly. And then I thought I was an absolute superhuman lifting the 12.5 kilo dumbbells. And then that started off a journey of just, I got my husband to try and like to teach me how to squat. I was like, hey, will you teach me? And he was just like, oh my God, I thought you'd never ask. Because we were training at different gyms because mine had a sauna and nice. Mine was, not a real gym. And he was training at a real gym. So then I joined a real gym. And then there were no other girls in the weights room. So my limit was just like my husband and what he could lift. And he's like twice the size of me. So it was quite cool. It was just like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And I couldn't quite do what he can do.
He's just watching at the corner of his eye going, oh God, here she comes.
What is going on? Yeah. But then I started realizing that I was getting stronger and stronger in the squat and the bench press and the deadlift. And then I met someone who competed, and he said, you should look at competitions. And I did my first one in 2016, and I just love it. I like being on stage. I like lifting under pressure. I like there being a crowd. I like getting supported by the crowd. So then just kept going.
This is your 9th year?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And what is the pinnacle that you've got to, or where do you want to get to with it?
Just want to keep improving.
Cool.
So I keep improving in every single lift, but I want to do it in the same weight category, which often involves getting leaner and getting stronger and getting your head in a better space to be able to mentally lift more, because that's such a big part of it. And then just keep doing competitions, keep doing nationals and internationals, and like having fun with it. I would, if I didn't enjoy it so much, I would stop. But I also think that so much benefit comes from just sticking with stuff. Yeah. Like powerlifting, relationships and business and everything. It's like, just keep going. Just don't give up. Choose what you're going to do so carefully so you don't just go down a route of something that you're eventually not going to like, but then just stick with it.
Yeah.
And if I look back to 2016, the girls who were there competing in the same competition as me, there's probably hardly any doing it now, but the ones that are like, they have just got better year upon year.
Yeah. And they're probably killing it in more areas than just powerlifting in their life, right? And there's people on the podcast that we've had on who have mentioned you as an inspiration to them in not only business, of course, but in the fitness space as well, because of the discipline that you've shown over time, which is so cool. I wanted to ask about, so we've got to the point where you've got the agency, you've sold the agency. You now run Coach Fox, which is a software or technology company, but a software company. So I'd love to hear a bit about what that does so everyone can understand it, but also what's the difference between running an agency and running a software business?
Yeah. So Coach Vox is an AI software company, and we make AI coaches, and they are business coaches, marketing coaches, all types of coaches, but they're based on real people. So real coaches who are like really good coaches. They have content. They have often written books. They often have podcasts. They show up online in some way. They have personal brands. They upload all their content to our system, and they make an AI version of them that coaches their clients. But it mainly acts as a lead magnet on their website. So they put it on there, they collect email addresses, and then they give potential clients a taster of their coaching so that they're more warm. And if you think regular lead magnets are kind of boring because it's just a boring PDF on your site or something that doesn't really engage, but this one talks back. So we find that they are very effective. And
what's the difference between the agency and the software?
So I started Coach Vox because I wanted to do something different, and also because I've had such an amazing experience of coaching my whole life. I was like, these are the people I want to work with. So it was very intentional. And then in between selling the agency and starting a new business, I did a bit of coaching, mentoring, and I was teaching people how to sell their business, or I was like, this is how you sell your agency. And what really frustrated me was people knew exactly what to do, but they didn't necessarily do it. It was like, this is what you need to do. This is exactly how to systemize. This is exactly how to get a buyer and find a broker and everything else. And people would just go off track in between sessions. And also I was traveling at the time, so I was on different time zones, so I couldn't see people as much as they wanted to. So kind of started as an experiment, making an AI version of me with my content so that people could use it to stay on track in between, so that they could get coached through and know what to do. And then once I'd built that and they started using it, they actually thought it was pretty good. And then, because I know a lot of coaches, they started saying, well, can you make me one? Can you turn me into an AI coach? So I started doing that. And then that's how that business started. And at first I got very confused between running an agency and running a SaaS. And I think it's because I'd had the agency for 10 years. I'm very tuned in to just go to networking, have sales calls with clients, write proposals. This is how you sign up clients. This is what they're worth to you. And because agency clients are like thousands a month, but our software is $99 a month. And it's such a different thing. But I had this idea that I would be pulling over what I called agency baggage, which is where I'd want to really look after people and spend a lot of time with them and do a whole agency way of looking after them. And that would be a bad thing for a software company, because it would mean that I gave too much energy away and too much time away. And so I probably held back a little bit at the start. until I realized that that's actually a really, really good thing. Because if you can do things that don't scale, and if you can give people all the love and the attention and make sure that everything they do is a success, then that will just grow your software company.
Yeah.
So I got over that and just started over servicing. And now I feel like community is kind of our competitive advantage, because our customers are all in a Slack group together and they meet each other and we help them out with stuff. And it's so much more than a software, because we are a community at the same time.
So they're talking about the coaching industry whilst inside your community, which is helping them to facilitate that.
Talking about the coaching industry, talking about what they're doing with their AI, talking about AI for coaches. Like, it's pretty much the space of AI for coaches. And we learn things to then pass it on to them to then help them grow their coaching businesses. But it's mainly what they want to do is they want to create more impact, but they don't want to be busier.
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't have to be busier because they've already written books and done all the content.
Yeah.
So now's where you like content, AI, combine them, and you can just scale yourself to infinity is the idea
this is
behind
something
it.
I'm missing out on. Why am I not doing this? This
Well,
is a nightmare. Let's stop the podcast right now. So what would you say if you've had, I'm sure you've had critics, right? Because this is a big business. You're very well known, sorry. So when someone says to you, well, I can make my own custom GPT, what would you say to them? That is the difference between your developers and your AI that you've built over years and someone that thinks, just like the powerlifting, they can do something because they understand the word or the acronym AI.
Yeah, so Coach Fox is built specifically for coaches. There are a ton of different ways to make a kind of AI version of you, but ours is to make an AI coach version of you. So it's not something that just Googles your content and tells someone something that they could read online. It's something that actually coaches in your style. And then also, because it's set up to be a lead magnet and to give coaches information about people, they can see all of that. So the name, the email address, all the transcripts of every chat, all the summaries of every chat. But then also we summarize that in our system. So you find out your audience's top challenges. And then, so each week it'll be like, these are the top things that people are talking to AI about. These are the challenges. So therefore, these are the next 10 ideas for your new blog post. These are the next 5 ideas for your new YouTube videos. But then that combines with their existing content to create more content. So we want people who are very fundamental about their beliefs. They've got strong beliefs on how the world should work. And that's what their clients buy into, because that's the stuff that makes a really good AI coach and also really good content going forward. Yeah. And so a ton of the other tools out there, they don't actually show you the stuff. Like if you made a custom GPT, you wouldn't see what people are saying to it.
No, of course.
So that's a big part of it.
The only custom GPT that I've ever got to work like consistently is the one we use for the podcast guest research, where like you just put the name in and it brings everything that someone's ever done and puts it into our format, like our story arcs. Anything else I've ever used it for, it's not quite, and maybe it's me, obviously, it could be my prompts and stuff, but nothing is exactly what you want. So there you go. Go on.
The first time I ever used ChatGPT was when I've got this really nerdy friend called Richard, and he's so awesome. And everything he ever tells me, I'm like, this is a clue. This is a clue. Richard is like delivering me clues from the universe. And as long as I use all of them, everything works out. And so he told me about ChatGPT, like literally the day it came out. And I went on it and I typed in, can you write me a blog post called How to Raise Entrepreneurial Kids? And I clicked enter and I was like, I don't know what's going to happen here. And what came out was a blog post that I'd pretty much already written, and I could see my words on the screen. And I'm like, but they're my words. So someone else can just use this exact same sentence, put it in there, and then get my words out and then just put them on. Like, it didn't make sense at all. No. But then since finding out that ChatGPT is trained on like 300 billion words, something like that, but they're our words. That's our content. Yeah. And there's nothing to say that someone else can't just use it because they've just gone on and typed the prompt in and now they've got the stuff. And so that was the start of a bit of a mission of protecting my content, helping other people protect their content as well. Because if someone uses just ChatGPT or another AI tool to kind of get your stuff, you're not benefiting from that at all. Whereas I really feel like the creator of the work should get all the proceeds of the work. So we're on that mission in Coach Fox.
I think it's so cool. And it's really cool to see you talking about AI so much, like being at the forefront for years before ChatGPT really on AI. Elon Musk has been in the news a lot in the last 6 months as this head of Doge, right? Just deleting hundreds of thousands of jobs in the US of his process. But I wonder if he's watched some podcasts that you've been on, because you've spoken about this for a while. You've spoken about how doubling down, not necessarily deleting, but getting rid of certain things. I'm really thinking about social medias here, and focusing on one thing, and then that getting you results and exploding.
Yes.
I'm really talking about social media and then thinking about Forbes and AI.
Yeah.
How did you start to understand or think about how that was going to benefit you and even putting it into action, doubling down on one thing at a time?
So that's a really funny idea that Elon Musk is reading my stuff and watching my stuff and using that to create his policies. So there's definitely a phrase that I think about a lot, and it's something that Justine Musk said. She follows me on Instagram, you know.
No way.
Because I said it on a podcast, and then someone kept reformatting it into reels, and then Justine Musk just followed me on Instagram. But it's something she said, which is extreme people get extreme results. And I really like hanging out at the extremes. I think I much prefer either going all in or opting out completely. And I don't really do things in the middle. So I told you before this podcast, like I don't read the news. I don't have a TV. I don't really know anything about like current affairs, and I don't drink alcohol. I go to bed at 9 p.m. I've got like a very strict set of like not to do's or opting out completely. But then when I go all in, I really double down and really do go all in. And I think it's because balance can be so overrated. And if you start out looking for balance, you end up being in this murky middle where you're not really testing the edges of your comfort zone. You're just settling for something and you don't really know because you've not tested. So you just kind of stuck. So my format is pick something and then experiment with going all in and do it for a very set period of time and then see how you feel and then choose the balance after that. So at the moment, I've just nearly finished a 30-day challenge of posting every day on YouTube. And that was just on that. It's like, I don't know if I want to like be a YouTuber. I don't know if I want to have a channel. So why don't I just go all in, be extreme, see how it feels, and then just take a cooling off period and then assess. And so that's exactly the same for writing a book in 3 months, doubling down on Forbes and writing 3 articles a day for that. And then powerlifting to some extent. Selling a business, pretty much everything. Just go test the extremes and then pull back from there.
Do you thrive under pressure? Do you like the pressure of something?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm like. If I've got a deadline of 3 months, I will do it 1 month before.
Yeah.
I just like pressure. If there's not pressure, I'm not really interested.
I like the pressure. I like that. I mean, pressure's self-inflicted. It's all, our deadlines are all just, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
Sometimes I write myself a to-do list and sometimes in an act of defiance, I just rip it up.
Yeah.
Like, no one can tell me what to do. Not even me.
Why are we so stubborn? What happened?
I don't know. But the thing I really, really love is when you get somewhere in sport or business or anything you're doing and you recognize that you are currently at the edge of your comfort zone. You know, in like cardio, extreme cardio, you probably felt this moment in high rocks, in a high rocks before, but where you're like, oh, here I am, here it is. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. And because you're aware of like personal development and you have self-awareness, you can study it. You can almost separate from it and go, I'm knackered right now, or I'm really stretched right now. Like I definitely was like this in March 2020. And then you get the chance to be very intentional about what you do next. Like I live for those moments because once you find them, that's how you can figure out the way forward, and that's the growth.
That's such a good way of saying it. In my head, I've just like pictured an elastic band where like, you know, you pull it as hard as possible and that's the extreme. And then when you put it back, it'll always be slightly longer than it was before. Yeah. So that you're testing the extreme and then everything else in the middle becomes a bit more simpler or sedentary almost. And
I feel like that with like heavy deadlifting. If I've deadlifted on a Monday afternoon, there is nothing that can happen that week that's going to be as hard as what I've done on Monday afternoon. So it's like, come at me. Like whatever's in my emails is fine because it's just, it's all in perspective.
If you're doing heavy deadlifts on a Monday, you're asking for it as well.
Yeah.
That's a terrible way to start the week. Something that we have in common, which I'm really interested in because we're so much earlier in our journey. I'm talking about Antonio and I running our business than you are with your husband, Ben. What's it like and what's it been like growing a business and running a business with your partner, especially when you've been a nomad, right? So you're together almost 24 hours a day. There's so many people that listen to this that I know run a business with their partner or they dream of it. What's your experience been like?
I love it. It's the best thing ever. I can't really imagine it another way. I guess we would figure it out if we wanted to run different businesses and do different stuff. Then we'd still be very supportive of what the other one was doing. But running it together, it means that your relationship just has different sides to it because you can just be like, oh, now we're training together, or oh, now we're working together, or, oh, now we're just hanging out and being Jodie and Ben and kind of being silly. So we have a mantra for our entire everything we do, and it's just same team. We're always on the same team no matter what happens. And I feel like having that as such a deep rooted value means it doesn't really matter if you haven't actually discussed something. You know how the other person's going to think about it, and you know what they're going to do, and you always give them the benefit of the doubt, which is really nice. We don't really fall out. And if we did fall out, we'd both be very like, well, I was triggered by this, which has come from this memory of when I was 7, and that's why it's come up for me. And
you'd analyze.
Oh yeah. We'd so analyze it, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, this did. And because you can feel it very physically, like everyone has, whenever anyone's triggered into saying something they don't mean or coming out with something, they'll feel it like in their heart, or they'll feel it in their head, or kind of rising in your throat or something.
Yeah.
So I think if you learn to notice what that feels like, then you can go, this is what's going on in my body right now, and this is what's triggered it. This is the thing that happened in my past that means that I'm associating that with something else. And then you can analyze that. And doing that with someone else is really fun, because if he like annoyed me, he hasn't really annoyed me. It's just something that has reminded me of something else that annoyed me in the past. So then we just figure it out.
Yeah. And you met relatively young, right?
Yeah.
So
Same as you
did
guys,
we,
yeah.
And so it almost feels like I won't speak for you, but it feels like we almost grew up together.
Yeah.
Like when I see her parents, it's like seeing my own parents, right? I think just think it's so cool. And I think we're at an advantage, because if you do have an argument or you fall out for any reason, like you say, you're like, we're on the same team. Like I know that you don't know anything different to I do in terms of like our values, and our mission's still the same. Just because someone's tired and someone's burnt something, toast or whatever, I don't know where I'm going with that. You know, the mission is bigger. A lot? Imagine I should burn everything. I feel like you're on a bigger mission, and you know that, which I think is a really cool advantage. But people that haven't been together for a really long time, what would your advice be to them when they want to run a business together, or maybe quit their jobs and start a business?
Over communicate everything. Talk about how you're feeling, talk about how you're not feeling, talk about what you want. I think the biggest hack for relationships is just tell people what you want. If you want, like I did this with Ben at the start. We were 18, school was finishing, and I was like, I really like this guy who's in my German class, but I'm never going to see him again if I don't do something about it. So I was like, hey, we're going to start dating now. And he's like, okay. And then that was it.
Really?
Yeah, just tell people what you want. And then I know it's scary, and I know it feels like, oh, I could get rejected or something really bad can happen. But if they want it too, everyone wins. Yeah. And then they're just relieved that you asked. And then
over-communicate is a great one, yeah. You can't really over-communicate too much, can you? Did he work in the first business with you?
He used to do personal training, and he did some modelling, and then we wanted to travel. And personal training and modelling was very location dependent at the time, because it relied on being in London, going to castings and doing jobs in the place where the job wanted him to be. So it was around 2014. My business was growing, and then he started to get involved more as an overflow. So it was when I had too much work to do, and he'd be like, I can help, and then just did some stuff. And then that's when, after that, he actually joined.
Oh, cool. Okay. So something else, the two things that I thought were really, apart from everything else, the two things that I wanted to ask you at the end, one of them was about what we just spoke about, the partners. The other thing I think is motivation, because we've just been in Sri Lanka for a couple of weeks. You know, the business ran itself, and we felt very visionary. We were able to do lots of like high level thinking and stuff. And the conversation that we came up with was like, how do you stay motivated when you're like, this is all running without me? Now what? And so that's kind of my question to you. Like, if you've got something that's growing, you're able to live the life you want, move around, do whatever.
Yeah.
How do you manage or continue to grow your motivation for what you're doing?
I never think about motivation.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever thought about motivation. I think partly I like deciding what game I'm playing. I like finding the game and then playing it. And that might be the personal brand game, or the LinkedIn game, or the podcast game, or the lifestyle business game. It's like, find the game, and then you're always getting up to play it, and you're always ready to play it, and you know the rules, and you know how to win. And then it never feels like you need motivation. That might be it.
So if you're on, so say you were just in South Africa, right, for a couple of months, you never wake up in the morning and go, I'm low on motivation to go to my meetings or to train or whatever today.
No, never.
Oh, really? That's
never
cool.
at all, yeah.
It's just a game for you, a game of life.
Yeah, so a lot of how I think about stuff is just day to day. Everything's day to day, because all that matters is how you spend your time. So one thing that I do is I track my time in my calendar to like the nearest 10 minutes, like not going forward, but going back. Like I always want every single day of my whole life to be different. I want to be able to look at any date and think that was that day. And I remember it and I remember what happened and it was different in some way because it just feels cool. So because of that, I call it my perfect repeatable day, which means if I had this one structure of a day that I had to live on repeat for the rest of my life, I would be so happy. And I don't live that exact day every single day, but that's just my default. So it's like I either get up and train or I get up and work. I don't really have a complicated morning routine. It's just one of those two things. And then there's training in it, there's work in it, there's seeing friends in it, there's chilling out, there's meditation, there's visualizing my 200 kilo deadlift. There's all this stuff in it that's just so, this is how it works. And because I really love living it, it never feels like a chore to just go and live it. I try and take decisions out of everything so I don't have to decide. Maybe that's from working and training with my husband as well, because if we had to be like, oh, what time do you want to go to the gym today? Oh, yeah. Like, no one's got time for those conversations. So it's just like, it's in the calendar. That's the time it happens. And then it just does.
It's like the perfect lifestyle business, right? So I'm assuming if someone bought like Coach Fox in December this year for 100 mil, you'd live the same life next year. You'd probably have a new game, a new idea, and you just carry on as is.
Yeah, 100%. I live the same life. I feel like I'm living my same life. I feel like I'm living my dream life, but it's because I've defined my dream life. Yeah. And this happened in 2013 or 14. This happened the year I read the 4 Hour Work Week. It was, what does the dream life look like now? And I split it down to every day, every other day, every week, every month, every year. Write down what you do in those increments and then cost it out. And when I first did that, I realized my dream life was like not even that expensive. And you're like, I could do this right now. But then since then, I've defined it again and keep redefining it and then just keep living it. And then your day-to-day just matches it. And then you've always got the motivation to do it because you're either working towards your dream life or you're just enjoying living it.
Exactly. So what is the next game that you're going to play?
It might be the YouTube game. I've just finished 30 days of posting every day on YouTube.
How did you find it?
Yeah, really fun. It's crazy how much cool stuff happened that...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some stuff I can't even tell you about. Yeah, the cool stuff that happened from showing up, opportunities coming my way. And it's not like I got 1,000 subscribers when I started posting for 30 days, and then people started coming out the woodwork with different stuff, and now that's led to other things. So maybe that game, but honestly the one I'm most focused on is Coach Fox, and the agency was a lifestyle game, but this is very much a performance game because the lifestyle game feels just so normal now. Like traveling and training is normal. So I feel like the living my dream life doesn't take that much effort anymore, which means I can fully be like, this is the business I'm growing.
This is the game you're going to play, the Coach Fox AI game. The
Coach Fox AI performance while living your dream life game, while getting jacked and tanned.
Why would you not do that? That's wicked. Jodie, where can people find you? We've talked about Forbes quite a lot on YouTube. Where can they find you online if they want to go and watch some deadlift videos and learn a bit more about business?
Yeah. The best place to find me is at jodiecook.com. I send a monthly newsletter with the 5 ways I'm leveling up that month, and also some of the random stuff that I've been writing that people seem to like. And then I also share new videos, and I share secret stuff on there as well. I kind of run things by my list. I think of my email list as being like my real special people. So I share stuff there privately that I don't share anywhere else. And
they can also talk to you, right? If they've got an idea for a Forbes article, or they've got an interesting story, sometimes you'll ask for feedback or for entries, and they can talk to you about different things.
Yes. If you go to jodiecook.com/pitch, that's also my list, but it's a special portion of my list where I share different source like ideas for articles I'm writing, and I say, tell me your story, and then I include them.
Perfect. Jodie, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Freddie.
If you like these episodes, feel free to subscribe to our Healthy Hustle newsletter below, where you'll get behind the scenes information from our guests, as well as from the studio operator who helps us create these cinematic episodes. It's also full of business advice and tips, and it will help you join the community of healthy entrepreneurs.